I live in a land filled with rebellion. We are descendants of Lot's eldest daughter through incest. Just so you understand what I'm talking about, I'll start with what most of you have already heard. Lot, who was Abraham's nephew, was married to the woman who turned into a pillar of salt. You remember? She looked back as her city was consumed from the flaming sulfur that fell from the sky. Yes, Sodom and Gomorrah. Either she identified with her past too much and wanted it back, or she disobeyed God's warning, which was to escape and not look back. Either way, her heart was not in the right place. Her husband Lot and her two daughters escaped, but they too weren't completely obedient to God. One thing led to another, and they ended up in a place where the daughters may have believed that they were the only humans left alive after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. So their grand plan was to get their father drunk and get pregnant by him. The oldest daughter had a son whom she named Moab. This is where my lineage comes from. Hi, I'm Ruth, a Moabite. The Moabites and the Israelites had conflict. Previously, one of our kings, Balak, attempted to have the diviner Balaam cast a curse on the Israelites, but God interceded, and the diviner Balaam instead gave a blessing to the Israelites, and God cursed Balak and all his people. We, the Moabites, were cursed, and the Israelites were blessed. I tell you this because of what you are about to hear. My people worshipped a god named Chemosh. Chemosh was seen as a fish god, our national deity. The worship of Chemosh was an abomination. This god demanded human sacrifice. I didn't know that I was worshiping false gods until the day I met an Israelite. His name was Malon. We fell in love and we married. He also had a brother named Kilion. He also married one of my people, a Moabitess named Orpah. Orpah, my sister-in-law, and I learned all about their people and their God, the God of Israel. Nothing like our gods. At first, I didn't understand why they would leave their land to come to a place of destruction, spiritually speaking. But that's how severe their famine was. Times were desperate, and they just wanted to survive. Unfortunately, Elimelech, my husband's father, found that the famine wasn't just in his land, but here as well. Things got bad for this family, and Elimelech, my father-in-law, died. I got to know him through the memories they shared with me. My mother-in-law, a widow now, was Naomi. Such a lovable, delightful, and pleasant woman who loved her God. Matters then took a turn for the worse. It was a time of hardship where the famine in our land was worsening. Then when things couldn't get any worse, my husband died, and his brother Kilion also died, leaving Orpah and I as widows. 3 childless widows having to fend for ourselves. Being childless and a widow at that time was to be a member of one of the lowest and most disadvantaged classes. We had to rely on the kindness of complete strangers. Could it be that Naomi felt displeased by her God for coming to Moab? I don't know. However, she knew that it is the Lord who gives and takes away. She still could see the hand of God in her suffering. Her faith was grounded without an ounce of resentment, and I wanted her God. It was then that my mother-in-law got word that the Lord has blessed his people by giving them good crops again. So she decided to return to Israel with Orpah and I. But after we had begun our journey, Naomi changed her mind and said to us, "Why don't you return to your parents' homes instead of coming with me? And may the Lord reward you for your faithfulness to your husbands and to me. And may he bless you with another happy marriage." And she kissed us, and we all broke down and cried. "No," we said, "we want to go with your people." But Naomi replied, "It is better for you to return to your own people. Do I have younger sons who could grow up to be your husbands? No, my daughters, return to your parents' homes, for I am too old to have a husband, and even if it were possible and I became pregnant tonight and bore sons, would you wait for them to grow up? No, of course not, my daughters. Oh, how I grieve for you that the Lord has punished me in a way that injures you." And again we cried together, and Orpah kissed Naomi goodbye and returned to her childhood home. But I insisted on staying with my mother-in-law. She came with a husband and 2 sons, but now goes back empty and not able to afford to buy back her land. We have nothing but each other. She then says, "See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. You should do the same." False gods leading us to destruction. I'm not looking back. I want the God of Israel. I looked at her and said, "Don't ask me to leave you or to turn back from following after you. For wherever you go, I will go. And wherever you live, I will live. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. The Lord do so to me and more also, if anything but death parts you and me." The 2 of us then went. And when we got to Bethlehem, I noticed how excited the people were that Naomi had returned. The love for one another was beautiful. However, my mother-in-law responded to everyone saying, "Don't call me Naomi. Instead, call me Mara, for the Almighty has made life very bitter for me." Her name Naomi meant pleasant or sweet, but through these challenging times, she preferred to let her people know that her heartache was more than she could bear. The cup of affliction is a bitter cup. Although the meaning of the name Mara meant bitter, Naomi still understood that her God is sovereign over all things. It was the beginning of the barley harvest, so I asked Naomi, "Please let me go work to the field and glean heads of grain." She let me go. Somehow I ended up in a part of the field belonging to a family of Elimelech, Naomi's dead husband. His name, Boaz. When Boaz saw me, he asked about me, and one of his servants answered and said, "It is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She's been working since morning until now. She only took a small break." Then Boaz goes over to me and instructs me to stay close to his young women, to watch where they are harvesting and follow them. And he gave orders that no one harasses me. "If you get thirsty, feel free to drink from the buckets that the servants have filled," he tells me. I dropped to my knees and bowed to the ground. "Why have I found favor in your eyes that you should take notice of me, a foreigner?" Boaz answered, "I have heard everything about you. You've shown extraordinary faithfulness to Naomi, and the great sacrifices you made, how you left your father and mother and your own land to live here, a foreign land. May the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wing you have come to take refuge, reward you fully for what you have done." I told my mother-in-law all about the man whose field I worked at, and told her his name is Boaz. and how he was showing me special favor. May the Lord bless him. He is showing us kindness to us as well as to your dead husband, she tells me. That man is one of our closest relatives, one of our family redeemers. You'll be safe with him, she says. It was then, towards the end of the harvest. Work was being done at the threshing floor, which was outside, where the grain was winnowed. Winnowing involves tossing grain into the air in a breeze so that the light husk of the chaff would be blown away. Boaz would work late, sleep outdoor at the threshing floor all night, then arise early and go back to threshing. This way, he extended his work hours and at the same time guarded his grain through the night. He worked late into the night, had a short meal, and laid down next to the grain piles to sleep. One day, Naomi said to me, "It's time to make our move, my daughter. I will arrange a good home for you. Tonight is the night of Boaz's barley harvest at the threshing floor. Take a bath, put on some perfume, get dressed up, and go to the threshing floor." With Naomi's instruction, I went to the threshing floor. I then waited till Boaz finished eating and drinking. Then I saw where he lay down at the far end of a pile of grain and went to sleep. I went quietly, uncovered his feet, and laid down. This would allow him to know that I am available for marriage. Around midnight, he suddenly woke up and was surprised to find a woman lying at his feet. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative." Yes, this was a marriage proposal. I called him out to be a close relative. This was like asking him, "Will you revive my dead husband's family lineage?" It was up to him if he seemed fit to pay the redemption price, which included the land of the ones who had died. Then he said, "Blessed are you of the Lord, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness at the end than at the beginning, in that you did not go after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you request. For all the people of my town know that you are a virtuous woman. Now, it is true that I am a close relative. However, there is a relative closer than I. Stay this night, and in the morning it shall be that if he will perform the duty of a close relative for you, good, let him do it. But if he does not want to perform the duty for you, then I will perform the duty for you, as the Lord lives. Lie down until morning." So I lay at his feet until morning, and I arose before anyone could see me. And he sent me with 6 ephahs of barley, for he said to me, "Do not go empty-handed to your mother-in-law." I went home and told my mother-in-law all that Boaz had done. Then she said, "Sit still, my daughter, for the man will not rest until he has concluded the matter this day." Sure enough, Boaz spoke to the close relative and offered him first dibs on the land, which belonged to Elimelech. If not, he himself would be next to buy it. So the close relative said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you must also buy it from Ruth, the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to perpetuate the name of the dead through his inheritance." Then the close relative said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I ruin my own inheritance. You redeem it, my right of redemption for yourself, for I cannot redeem it." Therefore the close relative said to Boaz, "Buy it for yourself." So in front of the witnesses and the elders and the people, Boaz said, "You are witnesses this day that I have bought all that is Elimelech and all that was Chilion and Mahlon from the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of Mahlon, I have acquired as my wife to perpetuate the name of the dead through his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brethren." And all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, "We are witnesses. The Lord make the woman who's coming to your house like Rachel and Leah, the two who built the house of Israel. And may you prosper in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem." We were married, and the Lord gave us a son, whom we named Obed. Obed grew up to be the father of Jesse, and Jesse had a son and became King David. I am the very, very great-great-grandmother of Jesus. Jesus, the true Redeemer, the one who takes you from a house of bondage, from the false gods, and shows you the way, the truth, and the life. Boaz bought back Elimelech's family. He had the role of a guardian redeemer, but Jesus is our near guardian who came to buy us back into God's family. He paid the ransom, saving us from death, the death that we had inherited from Adam and Eve when they sinned. Jesus lifts us out of poverty, spiritual poverty, ensuring us our inheritance through him, gifting us with eternal needs, with a forever home. You know, when Naomi's people saw her come back to her land, everyone had an opinion. Many were joyful, but because she had buried her husband and her 2 sons in a foreign land, some said they should have never left. Yes, things would have been different if they had never left. But I've learned that what the enemy meant for evil, God meant for good. When Naomi's family left to Moab, they had a plan. But the plan that God had was much bigger. The Lord chose me to take part in his family line. He took me out of Moab and brought me into the promised land. The God of Israel found me and rescued me using Naomi and her family. I discovered a prize, eternal life, the incorruptible inheritance, and the love of God, and I was willing to give up everything to possess it. My God saved me, and that is so much more valuable than all the riches in the world. All the things I once thought were so important are gone from my life. Compared to the high privilege of knowing the Lord as my master firsthand, everything I once thought I had going for me is insignificant. Matthew chapter 13 verses 45 and 46. The kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking beautiful pearls, who, when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it. Jesus is my pearl. Once found, makes further searching unnecessary. The great price is that which was paid by Jesus Christ. He shed his blood for you to pay the penalty for your sin. He is our Redeemer. All glory to him who rose from the grave on the 3rd day, that we too will be resurrected with him for eternity.